Prominent northern political, traditional, and business leaders on Tuesday converged on the historic city of Kaduna State to assess the performance of President Ahmadu Tinubu's administration 2 years after assuming office. The meeting was convened by the Sir Ahmadu Bello Memorial Foundation, a socio-political think tank committed to championing the ideals of the late Sardauna. During the event, the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Arewa Consultative Forum, ACF, Alhaji Bashir M. Dalhato, expressed concerns over what he describes as the growing marginalization of northern Nigeria under the administration of President Ahmadu Tinubu. Dalhato recalled the region's strong electoral support for President Tinubu, contributing over 64% of its total votes in the 2023 presidential election. Joining us now on this show to discuss highlights of the event and their message to President Tinubu is Muazu Aliyu Babangida, former chief servant of Niger State and chairman of the Board of Trustees for the Sir Ahmadu Bello Memorial Foundation. Good morning, Chief Servant. Very good to have you on the program.
Good morning, Doctor.
Hello, sir.
Good morning, Doctor. I understand you are together with
There's something about you.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. Bless you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
How are we?
Can you hear me,
We
sir?
are fine,
Very
sir.
good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe the problem with my own audio here, but
I can hear you.
the
Okay.
event under the auspices of the SAMBF, one major thing that came out there was the talk about the marginalization of the North. Now, is it true that the North is marginalized? Government officials who were there, ministers who were there, including National Security Advisor, said this is not true. And individually and collectively, they provided evidence. Now, the communique was not as harsh as some of the contributions on that at that forum. Could you just take us through, the major highlights of that forum as chairman of the Board of Trustees in terms of expectations, challenges, disappointments?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One, let me say this is a follow-up to what we have done in 2022. We invited all leading presidential candidates to Kaduna to tell us what they will do after winning elections for the northern states and Nigeria as a whole. And all of them, or at least many of them except one, came and told us. So whoever had won that election, and in which case, in this case, Asiwaju won the election. So we invited him for the first 2 years before we called them again as candidates by 2006, 2007. So it's a follow-up sure that what have you done in the first 2 years? Now, there are two issues that for me stood out. One, the perception, and which is very important in politics. No matter how good you are, if you are perceived not to be good, many people will say different things. Two, the governmental communication to the people. I guess what I understood from all the discussion that we have had is that the government officials were either shy or were not communicating well. You do not depend only on Ministry of Information to be able to communicate with the citizens. Every minister, every head of parastatal should be able to tell the people what he's been doing. And we saw so many evidence that many people or many parastatals and institutions have been doing very well, but people were not aware. And with the cumulative problems, particularly insecurity, kidnapping, and poverty, that I think also made sure that they dented the government's approach to matters. In other words, the government needs to be more of advocate. The government needs to be very straightforward and communicate properly with the people. not to pay too much attention to the political trends. Let the people understand what is happening on the ground. If by what we say that 64% of the vote came from the North, it is only logical that the North will be expecting so much from the government. But from what we have seen so far is that the government is doing well, but they do not, or the government does not know how to communicate very well. And also, there must be symbiotic relationship between the states and the federal government. The federating unit must also let their people know how much they have been able to collect, because I was saying before, I served in 2007 to 2015, and the gentleman who took over from me, 2015 to 2023, is it? Oh, yes. Got double what I got, but I think these people have gotten quadruple what we got. But at least let the people understand that this is what is happening and this is what we are doing. For example, we took the FCT case. Yes, construction of roads and other infrastructure, beautiful. But again, FCT is to be treated like a state. You cannot afford, while you are doing construction roads, to go and leave teachers to be on strike for 3, 4, 5 months. Doctors on strike in a city that is now our center, should be our center of excellence. So these are some of the issues that really came up, and we thought that we needed to advise the government or the officers. The issue of marginalization, again, is a concept that, depending on where you stand on matters.
Okay.
If you are used to entering the villa as you come in, and now you cannot enter, yes, you will feel marginalized. But I think one thing that also came out is that current ministers, current heads of parastatals are not relating very well with the people.
Okay,
and they need to establish that. Because the president or the vice president will not be everywhere to be talking to people. Theirs will be more of, well, Ruben, you know,
yes,
Dr. Abati, you are there, so you know what it meant.
Okay, sir, if I may just interject at this point. All your points are duly noted. Yes, it's a pleasure to be in conversation with you. However, when we have a case of unmet expectations, some might say that that's not a communication gap. Because if expectations are met, albeit to varying degrees, people don't need to hear about that from their local government chairman or from their governor or from any official of government. We can taste expectation, whether it's in the form of being able to go to school, whether it's in the form of security that allows us to go to our farms, or whether it's us being able to go to hospitals to get health care. So what about this case of unmet expectations, which transcends communication from government? The reality on the ground, there's a typical person in any northern state of Nigeria feel that they are being impacted by the government of the day.
Thank you very much. Yes, expectations, but again, if all the levels of governance are doing what they are supposed to be doing, many, in fact, like I argue in most cases that, look, if the local government can function very well, the state government doing its own, the pressure on the center will reduce. So this is where now we come to the revenue allocation. The federal government takes about 54% of the revenue, with the states taking 26% and the local government 20%. I think it should be reviewed so that the expectations will become more local. People will put more pressure and expectations on the local governance rather than looking at the center. So the unmet expectations, believe me, is a difficult thing now, but the communication can also help. Because where you promise to do this and you are not able to, you should be able to let the people understand what it is, or what happened, or what were the impediments that you have faced. But you don't hear such things. You only hear exaggeration and sometimes hyperboles rather than real communication. That's why I was emphasizing the communication part. Now, the expectations, the honeymoon or the way and manner the president came and with the votes that came, it is obvious that there will be expectations. But marginalization, like I said, depending on where you stand. In terms of appointment, I was saying yesterday in the plenary session that, look, the North has gotten most of the ministries that we should be more concerned with. We had insecurity. The two ministers of defense, including the NSA, are all from the North. Agriculture, the two ministers are from the North. Housing, every ministry that is of a major concern are all from the North, apart from finances and what have you. And I said, the budget minister, even if he does not collect the revenue, must ensure that everything expended from the federal government, that as a result of being Minister of National Planning and Budget, he should be very concerned. And if he has problem, he should be able to now establish a pattern of communication, not only the official communication, but also private communication. Now, how many of them really go back to their constituencies, including the members of the National Assembly, to go and have town meetings to say the government is doing this, or we have urged the government to do this, but it has not been able to do. Many of them have not had meetings or not even going back until election period comes. Now, this is the time to mobilize the people, to know the kind of people they are electing. And it is important because you cannot have the best when you do not care who you elect, you do not care the background of those people that you elect.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll continue with the unmet expectations and the frustration that will come with it. Okay.
So it's very easy, and it's a pleasure talking to you. I mean, I've always looked at you and admired you from afar, so it's a pleasure talking to you again. It's very easy to make the arguments against the governors and whip them like a whipping bowl. They're building houses, they're ineffective, they're bad leadership among the governors, isn't it? Fair argument. But let's look at the numbers. Let's play with the numbers this morning. What do you want governors to do in an economy that when President Tinubu got to power in 2023, inflation was about 24%? I want to get the exact numbers, if my memory serves me right. But the exact numbers was about 24.5%. But about a year after, in 2024, it rose up to over 30%, peaked at about 33% before we had to rebase and change the way we calculated. So if you are to follow the last parameters, it's not that things have really gotten better. It's just that we've changed the way we calculate inflation, so the numbers marginally would reduce. So that is what has happened. So what do you expect governors to do that had over a 10 percentile point increase? No, hang on a minute, sir. Please, hang on a minute, sir. 10 percentile point increase in inflation since 2023 when this government started to about last year. Secondly, they say, you also make the argument that they receive a lot of money, right? They receive much more, quadruple. Let us break down the amount.
No, but less value. Less value.
But less value. And that's the argument I was trying to make. Because if you look at Kaduna that everybody touts, I did some numbers. If the number is 42 billion that Kaduna now receives monthly allocation from the government, that's less than 30 billion. But the 12 billion they were receiving in 2023 was about 30 billion. That's about 26 billion thereabouts. So they've lost 4 billion in dollar terms, and you have high level of inflation. So you were once governor. What would you have done? Or what should the governors now do at a time? Because you see, the federal government make this argument, they make it so easily, but they don't say the other part of it. So what do you want a governor to do? Is grappling with over 10 percentile increase in inflation, and the so-called money they're giving him is already diminished in value.
Maybe the word diminish is too strong for the kind of resources that is going to the states now. But the most important thing as a governor, what one who should expect from a governor is that he pays attention, he discusses with people, he takes people into consideration whenever he's planning whatever he is planning. Not only to wait for budget time to go to the state assembly. If you go to many of the states and you follow it properly, you will find out that even the budget process has been skewed. Just like at the center where the burden has become so much that the budget has become almost useless in terms of both conception, process, and implementation. So the whole issue is a general thing from the federal, states, and local government. And I remember in my opening, I made a statement to say, look, you cannot be bad and expect to have your child as an angel. Your child looks at you and the way you behave. Where in a nation where virtually majority have become so corrupt that everything people want you to pay for, even legitimate things that are yours, they expect something from you. I think we should also pay attention to that. Otherwise, apart from inflation, is that generally we don't seem to care about the planning, about the implementation of processes of our things. Look at even at the center now. They said the budget of 2024 is still being implemented. So what happens to the budget of 2025? Gradually, it means we are going to have a lot of problems on the ground in addition to the inflation, in addition to the less value in terms of if you want to import anything or you want to give a contract that involves a foreign component, then it means that the money that you have will almost become useless if it is still at 1,600 naira per dollar. So that we understand. But what we are saying at the moment is that let us try as much as possible to satisfy the expectations of the people. And many of them, it's not that they're expecting a miracle. Many people, all they want is to be part of the integral process so that they are seen or they see themselves as contributing to what the process of governance. And it is important that we do that. Otherwise, people will be expecting even what they cannot get.
Well, sir, I can't resist the temptation to ask you a political question. You being one of the major chieftains of the People's Democratic Party. Now, you've referred to the people who have left the
Yes, sir.
PDP to go and join the opposition coalition as nomadic politicians who will not be allowed back into the PDP fold.
Yes, sir.
Now, Senator David Mark, I think it was yesterday, he was saying, oh, nobody will be allowed to do anti-party. Party loyalty is very important. But don't you think that there's an irony here? Disloyalty to the party being a major problem within the PDP and indiscipline, not punished, not sanctioned, being a major problem.
In fact, that is the major issue that we're facing, and all the political parties indeed in Nigeria. People's loyalty has become an individual thing to themselves. And unfortunately, because the structures or the institutions of the party have not been rationalized properly, money now is the major issue. And why I described the nomad, you know, a nomad does not have a home. A nomad, in most cases, does not even have a country. Wherever he finds himself, that is home. And I noticed that there are some politicians, they think they are the best planners. But we know who is the best planner. They jump from one party to the other thinking that that is what will give them success. But no. If you stay in one place and you are able to observe the rules of the game, you will be able to get what you are looking for. That is for that aspect. But the indiscipline and the loyalty, there are many people in the PDP we should have suspended or dismissed. But we are so incapable because they have been able to use money to penetrate all the organs of the party. And now we are trying to get it back together. And our frustration is that the people that will have joined hands together to get this party in a better form are the ones who are running away. So that is part of the issue. But loyalty has become an individual thing. People's ambition has replaced the loyalty to the party. So they see the party only as a vehicle for election. I recall when I was in the House of Representatives in 1983, MPN, I stood up in the House to speak, and I was queried for speaking because I did not clear the issues, or that I was supporting a PRP position in the House of Representatives, because the party felt that I should be queried so that I don't go and become more PRP than the PRP members, which is standard. If you have an ideology, and that's another issue, most of our parties is about individuals rather than ideology, rather than understanding the politics of the country and be able to really integrate. I'm very concerned that every time you are discussing politics, you are discussing North versus South and things like that. By now, after 60-something years, we should be talking of Nigeria. By now, we should realize that the poverty in Katsina is the same poverty in Yenagua, and things like that. But again, it will take a while. And the nature of the presidential system that we have adopted a system without adopting the culture that will go with it. Even though now we can see with Trump, maybe the theory that after every culture or every civilization, after 250 years, it begins to buckle down. Maybe that's what's happening in America. But we don't have to wait for that. We need to now, as we go along, repair some of the things. There had been an argument whether to go parliamentary, which I'm not so much in support of for me, because I said it was the parliamentary that we started with, and it was jettisoned. So what we have now, we must continue to correct it. But most importantly, we must be very strict, not only about the registration of the parties, but also the rules. INEC, if it can become more of Nigerian institution rather than a governmental institution, should be able to monitor all the political parties to see whether they adhere to the rules and regulation that it has established for itself. But no, what is happening is that some individuals hijack a party, and the process is skewed to the extent that you find they are the lords of the manor in the parties.
Well, just as we begin to round up, yes, just as we begin to wrap up, do you think ADC has any chances in terms of their ambition? They say they want to remove the APC and also remove President Tinubu. But some people say it's a mission impossible.
You see, my argument had always been, what is the alternative? What is it if you want to remove this or that government or that governor or that president? What is the alternative that you are offering to the people? Are you offering anything better than what we have at the moment? In addition to that, with our, even though unconstitutional, but we seem to have accepted our rotation, is ADC or PDP saying that the 8 years that is due by our arrangement, that is due to the South, now will go to the South? Or are we saying we jettison that and they enter into another crisis again? I have had many of the presidential aspirants already saying they will serve one term. Now, if a northerner says he is serving one term, what problem is he creating for the North? If a Southerner said, I'm only going to serve one term, what guarantee do you have? Now we have only defection of governors and other members of the assemblies. By 2031, you may end up with a presidential defection because his arrangement for one term will be with the party. It's not a constitutional issue. So he may defect to another party, and you have a major problem there too. So for me, who will win the election will depend on what happens in the next 1.5 years. And that is to say, if the government is able to correct some of the observable anomalies, I don't see why the problem. If we could tolerate the late Muhammad Buhari for 8 years, oh my God, let's try it. Maybe by 2031 we can jettison the arrangement if we find it convenient.
Well, Dr. Mohammed